Hello everybody, my name is Andy Gaskell. I'm the Global Marketing Lead for AI at BSI and I am your host today, and I'm delighted to welcome you to our webinar, AI Governance and Assurance, Practical Steps to Prove Your AI Works as Intended. So just as a brief bit of housekeeping before we get into our presentations, the webinar will cover what AI governance and assurance means in practice beyond policies and principles, how governance, risk management and technical evidence combine to support trust, and why independent testing, verification and certification have become increasingly more important. And we will have a particular focus on ISO 42001, the global management system for AI, and also our AI performance testing, which we offer as well at BSI. You will see in your panel a question box, and we will have a Q&A at the end of the presentation. And if you have any questions throughout the webinar, please add them into the chat and we will get through as many as we can at the end. We will send an email out around kind of 24 to 48 hours after the webinar, where you'll receive a copy of the slides and also as a recording of the webinar as well. So feel free to take as many notes as you want, but just be aware that anything you see on screen you will get, and you'll get the webinar to refer back to as well. And if anything you see you think is of relevance, or you want a bit of further information or a discussion with our team, we also offer the opportunity to follow up with the team on the feedback form you get after the webinar. The feedback form will also include kind of what you thought about the webinar and any kind of future ideas you might want to see in the AI arena. So all of that stuff is really valuable to us, and I just want to say thanks in advance for completing that. You'll see a QR code on the right-hand side of the screen, and we'll flash it up again later as well. But as part of attending the webinar, we're kind of pleased to offer you. We got a toolkit of resources for AI, so information on the EUA Act, things you need to do for ISO 42001, other webinars and white papers. And that's all accessible by scanning the QR code or using the URL listed on it as well. So feel free to take a scan of it, or kind of write down the web address, or when these slides come through and you want to click into it, that's absolutely fine, but just thought it's worth making you aware of now. So what I'd like to do next is introduce our two speakers for the webinar who are joining me for it. I'm absolutely delighted to have these two with us. First, I'd like to introduce Ali. Ali is one of our ISO 42001 auditors, and he will be discussing what best practice for integrating an AI management system into your organization looks like, and he'll also be tying in with upcoming legislation such as the EUA Act. Ali will go first, and after that we'll be handing over to Dilara. Dilara is an AI technical specialist at BSI, and she'll be focusing more on tools to verify that your AI system delivers the outcomes that it claims. So two different focuses, but hopefully all kind of relevant to our audience. Before I kind of hand over to the speakers, one of the things we're keen to do is just find out a little bit more about our audience, because we understand that we've got lots of people from all over the world kind of joining us today, and I'm really thankful for you for joining us. And people might be at different stages in their AI journey, so we just got a few kind of audience kind of polling questions just to really get a flavour for where you are. So the first one, you should see in a minute kind of a polling question come up. We just want to ask kind of what describes your organization's current AI journey, and we'll just give you 10 seconds to fill this in. Okay, and we'll look to close the poll. Okay, so fairly even spread, but it looks like the majority are in the early kind of experimenting with AI stage. The second question, what best describes your organization's sorry, I got that wrong. Does your organization have a defined AI policy, such as acceptable use and responsible AI? And give this 5 more seconds, then we'll close off the poll. Thank you. And again, fairly even spread, but it looks like around 60% of people are yes, but limited in scope and also in development. So it looks like it's something which is being considered, and it's great to see that's all happening. The next question we want to ask is, what is the biggest barrier to AI governance in your organisation? We'll give this 5 more seconds. Okay, so the top 2 answers were lack of expertise and regulatory uncertainty. I hope with the regulatory uncertainty, we will go somewhere in this webinar for helping some of that with Ali explaining kind of some of the latest updates with the UA Act and some of the regulations that will be coming forward. But again, thank you for sharing your thoughts with us on that. We'll move to our next question. So who currently oversees AI governance in your organisation? I'll give this 5 more seconds. Thank you. So an overwhelming leader in this one between the IT team, data and AI team. 20% saying not defined, and 19% saying risk and compliance. So I guess one area that's leading out front, but a split across the board. The final thing we want to ask you: is your organisation preparing for the UA Act compliance? Okay, I'll give it 5 more seconds. Okay, so very even split across this one, and kind of finishing on the UA Act from me kind of leads really nicely into our first presentation from Ali. He'll be focusing on that as part of discussing AI management systems and 2001. So thank you very much, and over to you, Ali.
Thank you, Andrew. I hope you see my screen.
Yes.
Great. So welcome and thank you for joining this webinar. So today I'm going to talk about AI governance and how it relates to AI systems in the organizations. So let's start off by just talking about like the governance landscape, the current situation. So before we dive into like the technical details, let me frame these like 3 pillars that we'll keep coming back to throughout this presentation. These are the 3 frameworks that together kind of like define the governance landscape of AI at the moment. The first one is ISO 4001. This is the international standard for AI management systems. It was published in December 2023. It provides organizational framework, meaning context analysis, leadership commitment, planning, risk assessment, control implementation, performance evaluation, and continual improvement. You can think of this as how you govern AI as an organization standard. It's broad, it's global, and is also certifiable. Next up is 18286, which is currently under draft. This is critically important. It's a European standard currently under development under the CEN-CENELEC JTC 21, specifically designed to fulfill the Article 17 of the EUA Act, which is the quality management system requirement for providers of high-risk AI. So once published, which is expected to be the end of this year, it will carry presumption of conformity, meaning that if you follow 18286, regulators will presume that you are trying to comply with the Article 17. It is product focused and not organization focused as opposed to 4001. But there are lots of like similarities in terms of structure between these 2. Next up, of course, is the Act itself. This is the regulatory backbone. It uses a risk-based approach to classify AI systems and mandate like corresponding obligations. Penalties for this one are severe if you don't oblige to the act itself, up to 35 million euros or 7% of the global annual turnover. And thanks to its scope, this is not just a European concern, meaning that any company placing AI on the EU market or affecting EU citizens would be in the scope of this legislation. And the key insight is that these three kind of work together, and I'm going to explain like how these are related. So just to give a broader context of AI governance, usually AI systems have life cycles. This is the centerpiece of the governance approach, the AI system life cycle. So governance really spans from inception all the way to release of the models. There's no shortcuts, because when something goes wrong in any of these in any of the aspects, there will be something that cascades into the next step. So that's why it's important that AI governance kind of controls all of these steps. So if we just like go over them quickly, in stage one, you typically have planning and design. This is where you define AI systems like intended purpose, scope, context. ISO 4001 clause 4 and 6 are directly relevant here about the context of the organization and planning. Under the Act, this is where you determine the risk classification of your systems, and 18286 really requires the design controls to be established upfront. Next up, there's usually data engineering. We'll cover this in much more detail on the next slides, but this encompasses like data collection, labeling, validation, preparation. Article 10 of the Act mentions this in more detail. It's all about the extensive data governance requirements. In stage 3, we usually have like model development. This is where training, testing, and tuning happens. This is where we have technical controls like experiment tracking, version control, bias testing, things like that. Next up, of course, is the verification and validation. Before any deployment, you would need some kind of like systematic testing against like your defined criteria before releasing the model. Article 9 of the Act mentions like risk management testing, and both 4001 and 18286 mandate pre-deployment validation. Then, of course, it's releasing the model, moving to production. This is where deployment gates, conformity assessment, and technical documentation requirements all converge at once. And then, of course, once the model is released, you have deployed your model, your system. You must monitor for drift, performance degradation, and incidents. This is mentioned in Article 72 of the Act, which requires like a post-market surveillance plan. And it's something continuous, not just one-off, because AI systems often suffer from data drift and concept drift, meaning that performance can degrade over time, even though the code is not changing. And it's worth mentioning that all these aspects are continuous activities that go on at the different at all of these like different stages, and kind of like span the whole life cycle. Now as I mentioned, like the stage 2 was data engineering, but data itself has its own life cycle when you talk about like governance. Because data is really like the lifeblood of AI, and data governance is where most specific regulatory requirements apply. We can talk about like the 4 stages that I would say like the most important parts of kind of cover the whole life cycle of data. First off, of course, is the collection and acquisition. This is where you establish lawful basis for data processing, making sure that there's enough representativeness across your target population, and document data provenance. Where does it come from? Is it representative? Do you have consent? These are the questions that you kind of like need to answer before any model development really begins. Then, of course, this is the preparation and labeling. This is where data quality is made or broken. You need kind of systematic quality checks, bias detection processes, documented annotation guidelines, because poor labeling cascades into poor model performance, as they say, garbage in, garbage out, and potentially, in some cases, even discriminatory outcomes in specific cases like HR or hiring. Then, of course, training and validation split. This is where statistical rigor matters. You need to prevent data leakage between the sets, making sure like there's a version control of the data, maintaining traceability, making sure that you're not testing your model on the data that it was trained on. Then monitoring and maintenance, because data doesn't stay static. You need drift detection, triggers for retraining, feedback loops from production into your data pipeline, because we cannot treat data as a one-off input. It's rather a continuous responsibility. And on the right-hand side, you can see the kind of like regulatory requirements. Article 10 of the Act mentions this. Aspects on data. Annex A of 4001, Control Section 7, talks about data management. This is also mentioned in the draft of 18286, Clause 8. And of course, there will be an upcoming standard for data quality, which is under development. Now, concretely, what do they mean for all of these like standards? So we mentioned like the different steps. This table shows like how lifecycle governance mapping works. So just like highlighting the key aspects, for example, when we talk about planning and design, you have ISO 4000 clause 4 and 6, where it sets the context for planning, with also like Annex A, Section 3 and Section 4, talking about policies, objectives, and resources for developing AI systems. In Clause 8 of 18286, you see like design control mandates. And of course, this is also mentioned in Article 9 of the Act, where it's talking about risk management of the system from the outset. Then on the development side of things, Control Section 6 of Annex A in 4001 covers the entire AI system lifecycle. And Clause 8 of 18286 talks about development controls. And if you look at, for example, Article 15 of the Act, it sets the requirements for like accuracy, robustness, and cybersecurity. And another aspect which is really worth emphasizing again is that the monitoring part, where you in Clause 9 of both ISO 4001 and 18286, because structure-wise they're quite similar, they talk about post-market surveillance, and this is specifically mentioned in Article 72 of the Act. So it's not just an optional thing, it's a legal obligation. If we look at data lifecycle governance mapping, so this is the table which is kind of like a practical reference for data governance. Just highlighting some important aspects regarding, for example, collection and acquisition. Annex A, Control Section 7 talks about data management, and for example, 7.3 and 7.5 address data acquisition and provenance. This is also mentioned in Article 10 of the Act, where it explicitly requires documentation of collection processes and data origin, including the original purpose of the collection for example, personal data. So this is important because you really need to know where your data is coming from. Then if we look at, for example, bias detection and mitigation, this is where, like again, all three frameworks kind of converge. You have 4001, where it addresses this aspect through responsible AI policy and impact assessment. In 18286, you have mandates for bias assessment and reference for companion standard, which is 18283, again under development specifically for bias mitigation techniques. And if you look at the Act again, in Article 10, you have requirements for examination of possible biases affecting health, safety, and fundamental rights. When it comes to monitoring and drift detection, post-deployment data monitoring is often where the companies are weakest, because sometimes it's like it's a forgotten aspect. In clause 9 of 4001 and also Annex A control section 6.2.6, you have requirements for performance evaluation and seeing like where drifts happen, that you're monitoring what happens after the deployment of your models. And this is again addressed extensively in clause 9 of 18286, which addresses the post-market surveillance in great detail, and again related to Article 72 of the Act, which talks about post-market surveillance plan. So these controls, you see, like these aspects are like practically covered in the standards. So why something like 4001 could be relevant? What makes it unique is that it's, of course, it's the first international standard for AI management system. It follows the similar plan, do, check, act cycle that many of you might be familiar with, which comes, of course, from the harmonized structure of the standards like 9001, 27001. When it comes to planning, you have clause 4 and 5 and 6, where you have you have requirements for understanding your context of the organization, securing leadership commitment, planning, and this also includes like critical risk assessment and AI impact assessment process. And AI impact assessment is something that kind of like distinguishes this standard from something like 27001, where we don't have like the assessment of the impact of AI. When it comes to doing, you have clause 7 and 8, where you need to provide necessary support, competence, awareness, communication, documented information, and you need to operate like you need to like implement the controls of the Annex A. When it comes to checking, you have performance evaluation in clause 9, monitoring, measurement, analysis, internal audit, and management review. So this is where you need like objective evidence that your AI management system is working, and it's not just like intentions. There's actual evidence that shows that you are properly handling AI systems in your organization. When it comes to ACT, the clause 10 talks about like non-conformity handling, corrective actions, continual improvement, because governance is not really a one-off exercise. It evolves as your AI system evolve, as the risks evolve, as the regulatory context change. And also what makes it unique, again, is that you have the impact assessment, which is different from the other standards, because most standards always like have some kind of like risk management in the as part of the requirements, but 4001 adds AI impact assessment on top of those to consider like fairness, transparency, impact on individuals. In the control section in Annex A, you have 38 controls, which are organized across different themes. You have policies for responsible AI, resources, data management, AI system lifecycle controls, and communication and third-party relationships. You have Annex B included, where it's the guidance for implementation of these controls explicitly mentioned, and standard mentions also that it's recommended that you follow Annex B for guidance on how to implement the controls. And of course, it's certifiable, so it's a recognized standard for certification, and of course compatible with 9001, 27001, because it kind of follows the same structure. When it comes to the practical steps for preparation, of course, there's the gap assessment, because if you have some AI systems, you already have like some AI policies, like internal AI policies that you can map against the requirements of 4001. You likely see that you have more than you realize. then of course like making an inventory of what could be under this under the scope, because you can't govern what you cannot see. So that's important, and also classification of the risk depending on where you are, if you're interested in the act, if other legal obligations apply to you, if you're in a different country, documenting the intended purpose of the systems, data sources, all those things, and then having a look at the lifecycle controls. This is where governance like becomes operational, embedding controls directly into like the engineering workflows, and finally implementing ISO 4001 based on the requirements of the standard. It's worth mentioning that BSI offers pre-certification assessment, meaning that even if you don't follow the typical stage 1, stage 2 certification cycle, you can opt for a pre-certification assessment where you gauge your readiness for implementation and certification for 40001. And I just want to end my presentation with some of the feedback of what the BSI clients are saying about 4001. Like you can see from the presentation, and this is public information, that clients across like the different industries that have implemented 4001, they're recognizing it the gold standard for responsible AI, and the consistent themes in the feedbacks are trust, credibility, accountability, and also giving stakeholders confidence that AI systems are safe, they're reliable, they're built on rigorous governance frameworks, and so on. So just to show you like how like something like 4001 could help with AI governance. And that's it from my side. Dilara is going to talk about AI performance, which also just kind of related to what we talked about at the different stages of the life cycle of the AI. So Dilara, I would like to hand it to you to talk about the AI performance. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you. Let me just check it if I can control. It should be okay. Perfect. Okay. So let me just introduce myself. I'm Dilara from AI Technical Specialist Team, and today I will be walking you through our AI performance service. So let's just get started. We all know that AI can do extraordinary things, but only if people trust it to act responsibly. So can you see my slides, by the way? I think there is a, perfect. Oh, it moved a little bit fast. Okay, so we talk about, AI can do extraordinary things, and we know that people need to trust that one, and it's acting responsibly as well. So then we can assume that it's trustworthy. So with this service, we are aiming that we will provide an independent expert-led evaluation of your AI system. And this verification will be quantitative and qualitative external verification of your models and data sets. Put simply, we verify that your AI operates as intended and aligns with your defined objectives. Why does it matter? Because it helps you to demonstrate that your AI is not only intelligent, but also responsible and ready for the real world use case, and strengthening your trust and credibility in your performance claims. So let's dive deep into a little bit key benefits of it. Because this service supports you throughout the entire AI lifecycle, not only the finishing line. So for instance, in the early development, it helps you to detect gaps, risks, or performance issues before they become expensive redesigns or even worse, public-facing problems. Early detection means that more agility and fewer surprises. And in the final stages of development and during deployment phase, it provides objective verification that your system performs as intended, aligns with the best practices, and meets your expectations. This independent verification serves as a confidence booster by assessing bias, robustness, and performance right before you go to the market. And we all know that in today's landscape, trust is the competitive advantage. Also, you will receive after this service BSI AI Mark of Trust and a confirmation letter giving you that AI external credibility and reassuring that for your customers, regulators, stakeholders that your AI is reliable, fair, and safe, but not only the powerful. Alongside with all the benefits that we mentioned, this assessment also helps organizations get ready for EU AI Act conformity assessments. So basically, after the transition period, all high-risk AI providers and deployers within EU must undergo third-party assessments to demonstrate that their data, algorithms, and practices meet harmonized state-of-art standards. So with this performance, BSI AI performance, you can also complement other assessment approaches, such as Ali mentioned previously, ISO 42001 certification, by offering an additional practical evaluation of your model behavior, robustness, and performances ahead of formal regulatory reviews. So we covered basically what is this service and what type of benefits out there. Let's just have a look at how it works. Basically, you provide your model, data sets, and the metrics. Then we verify the model using your inputs and apply additional evaluation criteria, including common metrics appropriate to your AI and based on the international AI standards. Several safety, robustness, bias, and performance metrics are taken from various standards. As you can see here, they are including these standards, but not limited to those obviously related to classification, segmentation, and biometric systems. Based on these assessments, we generate a comprehensive AI performance report aligning with the metrics that you provided, covering data quality, model performance, robustness, bias, and fairness metrics. AI performance service supports image, tabular, and text datasets ranging from, let's say, 2D, 3D segmentation and object detection to multi-class classification, biometric identification, and many more. And regarding the compatibility, this service supports an expanding range of commonly used AI workflows and dataset formats, as you can see here. But additional workflows are currently in development as well. So basically, BSI supports common datasets and model formats such as tabular dataset in CSV format or image formats. It can be from DCOM, 2D, 3D, NIFTY, or JPEG, as well as text-based datasets. We also support model neutral formats. Or if you don't want to provide your model, but the pre-computed predictions are also can be supplied, and we call it a model-free assessment as well. If you have further questions in here, please contact us to discuss regarding your requirements, and then we can give further information as well. Let's move to the when you supply your models and datasets, how it will be uploaded. So regarding the onboarding of your models and the datasets, we offer secure upload via our portal or SFTP. Your dataset and model will be stored temporarily on our secure EU-based servers during the assessment. Afterward, obviously, it will be securely deleted and you will receive a deletion certificate. We talk about everything. Now let's talk about a little bit the process, end-to-end process. So basically, process begins with defining the scope and reviewing the feasibility of verifying your AI models, algorithms, and datasets. Then you submit an application and receive a tailored code for your AI performance project. Next, we move into contracting and scheduling to plan the assessment activities. And during onboarding, you provide your datasets, models, and reported metrics for verification. BSIs then come and performance independent testing and verifies the quantification and reporting of your AI system. At the end of the whole process, you will receive a confirmation letter, an AI performance report demonstrating that you have successfully evaluated your AI. Let's move to the our use cases. So maybe, okay, perfect. So we already had several clients and diverse use cases that we have obtained until now, and they also receive BSI Mark of Trust. And this portfolio continues to grow. In short, the common theme was evaluating the performance of their AI system, specifically checking the parity across different populations or supported devices, as well as ensuring robustness against per-tube input signals for their cases. And we are still having our portfolio continues to grow. So let's conclude with a summary. Basically, this performance service provides an independent and impartial verification of your AI system performance, including bias and robustness using standards-based metrics. And also it strengthens your trust and credibility in your performance claims and supports preparation for future conformity assessments. So that's it from my side. I think I will now handing it back to Andy for questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Dilara. I just want to say thank you to Dilara and Ali for their presentations. I found them really interesting and insightful, and I think our audience has as well, because there's been an absolute barrage of questions coming through for both of you. So I'll try and get through as many as I can before our webinar is out. Just the first thing I've been asked from about half a dozen people in the chat is, will we get a recording of the webinar and a copy of the slides afterwards? And the answer is yes, you will. So we will upload the webinar to YouTube and send out a email with the link, and also a link to the slide deck as well. That will typically come around 24 to 48 hours after the webinar, so just keep a look out in your inbox, and you should see that come through. So yeah, thanks for everybody who's asked for that, and we will make sure that gets to you. So in terms of the other questions that have been asked, I've got a couple about training, which I think is probably best for you, Ali, and they kind of fit together. So I'm going to ask you both of them, and then I think you'll be able to give an answer on both. So the first one is, what training does BSI offer on AI governance, and is this online? And the second one, is there a lead auditor course on AI?
So I can answer one part. I know that we have training courses for lead auditors and also lead implementers for 40,001. We do have those, and I believe we also have courses on AI governance as well, practical lead. So this is handled by the training division of BSI, where like you can see like the availability, the timing of the courses, and also those schedules. They are like regularly updated and published. I don't have the link right now, but I think we can look it up to send to the chat to the participants.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. I can put a link to our training courses for AI in the chat, so so keep a look out there. In a couple of minutes that will be there. The second one is, we've had a few around the EU AI Act. One is, does having ISO 42001 certification mean compliance with the EU AI Act?
I see. So that's a very common question that when I talk about like 4001 and also like the act, like people are wondering about like the legislations, regulatory, like when it comes to effect. So the short answer for 4001 is no, because it was not approved for like a EU Act conformity assessment. Because 4001 itself is very focused heavily on the organization side of things, while the mandatory requirements in Article 17 of the Act are mostly about the products, how like the quality management system for the product itself. But the caveat here is that if you implement something like 4001, it kind of lays the foundation for implementing and compliance of the requirements with the requirements of the Act, meaning that sometimes like the things that are not covered in the Act, for example, 4001 mentions that you can opt for additional controls to implement to handle risks in your within your AI systems. So there's lots of coverage, lots of like overlap between these two, and I would say like it helps a lot to build trust and also like the foundations for the compliance. But having a certification for 4001 doesn't mean that you comply with the Act itself.
Okay, thanks, Ali. The next one follows on from that. Does PREN 18286 and the EUA Act apply to the UK?
I can take that as well. Take the question.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the requirements of the Act. So as I mentioned, like the scope of the application of the Act is whether the services are provided in the EU or the EU citizens are impacted. So if you have services that are deployed in the EU, and your system, as per the classification of the Act, is high risk, then you have the application of the requirements for the QMS, which then translates into 18286. So whether you're in the UK or in the US, like if you are shipping like models to in the EU market, and if you are classified as high risk like AI systems as per definition of the Act, then yes, that will like apply to you, and you need a conformity assessment and all of the steps that are required. So I hope that answers the question.
Okay, thank you. If anyone, if we don't quite answer your questions right, please, we're going to send a follow-up email, and if you've got any further questions, please get in touch, and we will do our best to follow up and provide fuller clarification. The next one I'm going to put to Dilara. What are the main differences between getting an AI performance test and getting certified to ISO 42001?
I mean, that's a good one. Ali, you can also go ahead, but I think the differences are, Ali mentioned already all of the AI life cycles, and this performance testing comes in the development and the deployment phase. So it's not like whole area. And I think the other difference is like we are more checking the metric wise, more like concrete verification than the big picture of, all of the AI life cycle. So maybe Ali, you can also comment on that.
So when it comes to the life cycle itself, like is covered extensively in like 4001. You have like the different controls, different aspects. So I would say if the question is about the Act and 4001, you have lots of things that kind of like overlap between the two. Yeah.
Okay. Next one I think is for Ali as well. What tool is used to measure AI governance and gaps?
Good question. So BSI, so as part of the certification, usually like the certification cycle is first off like stage 1. This is per requirements of like the 17021, where we look at the documentation level of the organizations. Then of course in stage 2, we look at the implementation and the 3-year certificate cycle, where you have surveillance audits and then recertification. So before all of these, companies can opt for what we call the pre-certification assessment. So this is the pre-certification audit. It doesn't have any of the, for example, findings that we have in the audits, like minor, major non-conformity. It's just usually, typically a 2-day audit where we have a session with the clients, and we assess the kind of like gaps that they have within their like existing policies, and also the requirements of, for example, 4001. And then at the end, the report mentions for each of the requirements, what is the level of the readiness for the organization. If there was like a policy existing, if there's a process existing and it's working and is compliant, then it's mentioned there. And the pre-certification itself doesn't affect the other stages, so people can opt for just like having the pre-certification without engaging in the full certification cycle.
Okay, thanks, Ali. Another one for you. Is the AI system inventory about systems your own organization has made, or is it about any that you use, for example, Copilot as part of the Microsoft suite?
I see. So that question is really about the scope of the AI management system. So if, for example, if you look at clause 4 of 4001, we have like the different AI roles, like for example, producer, provider, and user. So if let's say someone is like doing some kind of like provision of AI systems, they have clients that they have like AI system, and for example, something like Copilot is being used as just a productivity tool. Then for that part, we look at the productivity tool as part of like the responsible use of AI system in the Annex A controls. And so that becomes part of the inventory as part of like the responsible use, but the main certification scope would be the provision. But if there are companies where they're solely AI users as per AI roles in clause 4 of the standard, then that becomes, for example, the main like AI system under the scope, where you need to, for example, have AI impact assessment and like checking the risk associated with using a tool like that in the daily basis, on a daily basis.
Okay, thank you. Next one I've got, I think it's probably for Dilara. If AI is part of a software as a medical device, how much can the AI be adjusted on the outcomes of a validation randomized clinical trial?
Okay, I mean, I will answer in general because I think software as a medical device is under MDR or IVDR, I assume. So basically, there are different elements out there under that regulation umbrella. I mean, it's a very, there is no one answer to that question. But what I can say is like in here, what we mentioned is like, basically, after the clinical trials, you can receive, some feedback, some output from those trials, and you know which population you are working really well and which population is not working, or other type of elements of this clinical evaluation. From there, based on that one, you can adjust what you need and collect the evidence. But for this case, if we want to bound to our performance service, basically you can go with the, as we mentioned previously, bias related, robustness related evaluations that we perform. If you have already a need to check, it's an independent testing. So basically you can check based on what you, achieve from your clinical trial, and then you can go further, because maybe eventually after that trial you will be adding up to your new data or other stuff, like maybe changes in the design, so on. So depending on what you need, you can check it. I don't know if that answers what is asked, but please go ahead and send me an email, then I can follow up with that one as well later on.
Fantastic. I've got another one for you, Dilara. We are working on various algorithms which we are developing using data from the UK Biobank. This data is used to train our models. We use our own internal data sets for testing. At what point can we say we've done enough testing for V&V? What is the best approach to document this evidence?
Okay, again, I think I mean, the questions are a little bit parallel one another, but what I can say is basically based on your requirements, based on your model, based on your data set and your use case, it depends. So it changes. There is no one answer for that one. But what I can say is like basically when you are providing the verification and the validation outcomes, and you can say that this is enough, is directly linked to your requirements. So if you have a use case that demands some certain population, some certain bias requirements, some certain robustness that you thresholds related to those use cases, you need to provide the how to say evidences, and those evidences can be collected, verification and validation. So both of them, we cannot just say only one, and depending on how you will choose. So there is no one answer for that. Yeah.
Thank you. Right, the next question, I think it will be Dilara, but Ali, you might have a view on it as well, so I'll put it to both of you. I represent a multi-palatity which will use AI rather than develop it. However, when acquiring AI systems, we still need to require governance metrics such as those listed in the seminar. Do you see the market already demanding third-party certification for this? My impression is that much of what exists today is still self-certification with varying levels of quality.
I mean, I can start, Ali, if you want.
Yes,
so
please go ahead.
basically, I mean, I don't want to say depends, I think I'm using, but it really depends. So basically, high-risk systems, if you are failing under the high-risk system, under the EU-AI Act, you somewhat need to provide independent, evaluation of your results, verification and validation. So basically, I'm giving one example, biometric systems, let's say identification. You need to somewhat provide. You cannot just say that, look, I did it really well, these are the evidences, so on, so. Or those evidences should be really extensive, that covers every step. So that's why we say that it's not like self-confirmation, but instead it's more like a based on all of the available standards or best practices out there, and you just verify your system. So it's an extra evidence for those systems. I don't know, Ali, if you want to add something.
Yeah. So good points, Dilara. Just want to mention that regarding the part about like market demanding third-party certification for this, ISO 4001, just like other many other like ISO family standards, it's completely voluntary. So it's not like mandated by the law or any like as so far like as we speak, it's not mandated by any law as far as I know to be implemented. But again, it's something that the trend that we kind of see with other standards like 27001 when it initially came about, and comparing like when it came about and currently where it's has become kind of a contractual requirement for many like industries that when they want to engage with partners, clients, that this would be a part of a requirement that they would have like 27001. I think that since we are like only like in the earliest stages of like AI regulation, AI standards, this will be like more common practice in the future, that like people that want to engage and show that they have some kind of like governance in practice, governance, that they practice governance and governance is in place in their organization. I think this will be like one of the most common standards in the coming future on AI governance.
So I think it kind of links in with this, but do you see almost like ISO 42001 in a few years' time becoming almost like a license to operate where companies will have to have it, or do you think it will remain voluntary?
I think it would remain voluntary, but it's just become so like common and so commonly practiced and so commonly like required when people deal like in the business, that it will just become like kind of like a mandatory, but not by the law, but just like by best practices.
Okay. The next one I think will be for you, Ali. If you're already certified under ISO 27001, how much of that work carries over to 42001?
Good question. So 27001 and 4001, they have like a completely different focus, right? But like 27001 only focuses on information security, what comes in, what comes out, the data that's handled in the company, is that secure. 4001 is all about the governance of AI, like responsible use, ethical use, impact, all of that. So the focus is of course different, but what's really like striking between these two is that the structure is like so similar, like they follow the same, like harmonized standard, like clauses are like the numbering is the same. It goes from 4 to 10. You have Annex A controls that you have that you can take to implement or not. as part of your handling AI systems. So structure-wise, it's completely similar. So what that would do is what that would translate to is helping with the documentation part. If you have already 27001 certification, it means that you're already familiar with what are the kind of things that are expected as part of the documentation, how you prepare for the audits, those kind of things. Those will kind of be similar, and that would help companies to implement. And you can have and it's also even mentioned in the 4001 standard itself that you can integrate this with other standards, and 27001 is one of the standards that is mentioned in the text of 4001. So lots of similarities in terms of structure, but the focus on the scope is different.
Okay, fantastic. Right, we've just got time for a couple more. Dilara, do you see do you offer similar performance service covering medical device and software as a medical device compliance / review of third-party products?
Okay, I mean, I think it's linked a little bit to the previous question. So basically, we have already conformity assessment under MDR and IVDR. The service that now we mention is independent testing service, so it's verification related. Of course, it's suitable for any type of domain. It can be including medical domain or other domains as well. We support verification, but it won't be assessing full, everything like we do in the conformity assessment. So that is different thing, which is validation, that, we are validating your product if it's suitable under the MDR or IVDR. I'm talking about from the medical domain only. But for this case, you can, of course, do it, based on your model or data sets. We can also evaluate that one, but it will be a verification, not validation. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
And one last question to finish off. I'll let you guys decide who's best to answer for it. Is there a comprehensive, systematic way to test AI systems that have a Gen AI model, brackets LLMs from FB, OpenAI, Anthropic, in implementation, like testing the guardrails, etc., since this is a potentially never-ending topic?
I mean, I can go first, Ali, if you want to add something. Basically, for this service that we mentioned, AI performance service, we already go over some evaluations on the LLMs, but obviously it's a topic that is evolving every day almost. So basically we are adding up the new evaluation metrics and new, sometimes standards are also evolving. So we are also checking them as well and the best practices. It is an evolving field. Of today, we provide some stuff, but I think it's better to check with us, just to understand the complexity of, what is required, because it's a big topic now and it's evolving. Yeah, if you have.
No, I think you answered perfectly. I just wanted to say, if you plan to implement 4001, you can, of course, apply to any of the AI systems that you have. It's very generic. So when it comes to 4001, it is possible to implement it for any AI system. It's not just generative AI, but any also classical machine learning, and also more advanced ones like deep learning.
Okay, right, I'll bring our Q&A to an end, but thank you everyone who's contributed to it, and I just want to say a big thank you to Lara and Ali for their presentations as well. I certainly enjoyed them, and I hope our audience did as well. So just on our final slide, there's a couple of QR codes if you want them. One, which is also the web URL BSI group /AI, will take you to our main AI page where you can get information on our training, our certifications, and all the kind of the good stuff around that. And the other QR code is the one that I mentioned where we got all our resources, so sort of white papers and other bits that might be of use, other on-demand webinars. We will put out a feedback form after the webinar. We want to be producing webinars which benefit you as an audience, so please just give your honest thoughts on how you think we did. If there's any particular topics that you'd like us to focus on for the future, it'd be great to know as well, so we can look to plan a webinar series off the back of that. And also, if you want to talk to any of our team about ISO 42001 or getting your algorithms tested via performance or the UA Act, there's an opportunity to ask for support there as well. So we'll be more than happy to help you there. We've also got an email address as well if you'd rather drop it in that way. And I've just asked in the query, use the one mentioned there so we can identify where it's come from and kind of direct it to our most relevant person as fast as possible. So I just want to say, yeah, thank you all for joining. Thanks to Dilara and Ali for their presentations. To close off the webinar, we just got a couple of videos which we'll play on the outro. One is from Darktrace explaining their ISO 42001 certification process. And then we've got Ivolution, who have taken on the AI performance certificate to test their algorithms. So thank you very much for joining, and yeah, enjoy the rest of your day wherever you are in the world.
We're here today, a really important occasion. We have come to hand over Darktrace's ISO 42001 certificate. This is the first time that BSI has issued a 42001 certificate to a UK organisation and the first issuance to an organisation in the cybersecurity sector.
Darktrace is a cybersecurity company. It's crucial for us that our systems are fully trusted by our customers. And so when the ISO 42001 certification arose, we were very keen to add it to our existing certifications.
ISO 42001 is the world's first quality management system standard for AI. And it really allows organisations to address the unique risks and responsibilities relating to AI and to really build client trust in ethical AI practices.
I'd like to personally thank the team at BSI for their exceptional support, professionalism and expertise throughout the whole certification process. You've been exceptional partners and we're proud to have achieved this milestone with leading and globally recognised institutions such as BSI. It's great to be part of a global first. We hope that this will be seen as a trailblazer and encourage others to do the same as us and start to get certified both in cybersecurity and beyond, ensuring that everyone develops AI responsibly.
We really do hope that lots of other organisations will follow with a commitment to responsible AI.
Ivolution is a spin-off company from one of the top and largest companies in the Middle East called Logic Consulting. They help the Middle East companies to build capacity with AI, and with my long-term partnership with BSI, I thought we need to have independent and quality assurance of this solution.
Today is a great privilege to welcome Ivolution into our global headquarters to celebrate the success of this significant milestone in their achieving the Mark of Trust for AI performance and awarding the letter of confirmation for AI performance to Ivolution team.
AI performance allows clients to demonstrate to their customers that there is rigor and robustness in their AI algorithms and datasets. AI performance is an independent assessment of AI models and datasets used to train them by our independent experts and regulatory experts.
It is rewarding. We have done this. It gives you a kind of assurance that we are on the right track, we are doing well. But not only this, it gives us also the catalyst to start the new project.
We are very happy with this partnership with the BSI. It benefits us a lot, it gives us a credibility. We are aiming high in everything that we are doing and confident because BSI is the right place to get the credibility.